artists. Thank you so much for joining me today. I am so happy to bring you this podcast episode that's also a video. I have decided to bring you a solo podcast episodes every other episode, but also include a YouTube video. So if you're watching this on YouTube, you could technically be listening to this on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and vice versa. If you are listening to this on a podcast platform, you can watch this on YouTube. Why YouTube? Well, you get to see my pink office, my outfit, which, I'm very proud of putting together for you. Okay. And also my facial expression. So that you kind of get to understand a little bit more with every little micro expression. So here we are. Today, I'm going to talk to you about your elevator pitch and how you can use it on Instagram to create more effective Instagram posts. Now, I'm going to give you an idea for 3 types of Instagram posts that you can make. Now, if you are an artist who has been following me for a while or may have worked with me already, you may hear some information that I have told you before, but you know what? Maybe you will learn something super new from this, right? So let me get into it. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my favorite thing called the elevator pitch. Now, a thought here is we all may have not been in elevators with people for a while in the past few years. So if you wanted to call this something else, not an elevator pitch, maybe like a subway stop pitch or BM pitch, right? Then I am open to your suggestions. If you have one, leave a comment wherever you're listening to this or watching this, right? I'd love to know. So here's the thing. So your elevator pitch is so important because it's something that will sum up your work. It'll sum up you and ultimately like the thread between all the different things you may have done as an artist, as a person into one. And the most important thing about it is that you're going to lead with why you do what you do. Let me tell you why I'm telling you this. So in my online group program, the Artist Academy, I always invite guest experts at the end to meet the artists. And when the artists introduce themselves, they tell the guests their intention behind their work. I mean, it's pretty efficient. So now it's the 10th time I'm teaching this program. When I first taught this program, I had a friend of mine come on. He is a big curator for a large arts institution here in New York City, and at the time was a chief curator at another nonprofit arts institution here in New York City. So he's had plenty of experience, and he has met so many artists. Now, when he was talking to the artists in my program, at the very end, after listening to 15 artists introduce themselves, he said, "That was wonderful. But the artists that I remembered the most were the ones who told me why they did what they did." And this is the number one ingredient of the elevator pitch. It's a very clear formula. But, sometimes simple things take time. So sometimes the artists that I work with, we have spent upwards of a month figuring out the elevator pitch, right? But ultimately, it's something that you get to have with you for a long time. It's something that you get to use on your website, in your artist statement, in social settings, on your social media. And, the use is exponential, right? Because from that, you get to truly connect to an audience that authentically and organically cares about what you do. So let me tell you the formula because you're going to be using it on Instagram in the 3 types of Instagram posts that I'm going to tell you about today. So the formula is, first, we're going to say why you do what you do, okay? So even if you are in a social setting and someone asks you what you do, Don't just railroad it, and tell people why you do it first. Then tell people why you're qualified to do this, right? What is it that qualifies you specifically about your identity, your history, your interests, your knowledge? What is it that qualifies you to have this unique perspective on your work? And then tell people what you do. So why, what qualifies, and then what. I'm going to give you an example. Instead of saying, well, I'm a realist painter and I paint nudes, right? How many realist nudes painters are there? Right? I mean, they really go back centuries, really. There's a lot, okay? So what is your specific selling point? That's going to come from the why. So what if you said, well, I'm so fascinated in human anatomy. I actually studied it in medical school. And right before graduation, I decided that my true passion was studying the human form. So I decided to become a realist painter and explore the human form. All my paintings are nudes. How much more exciting is that than just saying, I'm a realist painter and I paint nudes, right? I mean, instantly you create a connection to whoever you're talking to. They might say, oh, well, anatomy, that's so fascinating, blah, blah, blah. You know, who knows what they will say. But they're ultimately going to remember more about you than just that you're maybe an artist or whatever it is, right? So that's super cool. So I'm going to teach you today 3 Instagram posts, right? Like I'm going to tell you about 3 different types of Instagram posts where you can truly connect organically to an audience. What does that mean? Organically means authentically. Organically means without paying for it as well, right? Because one thing that I teach artists that I work with, one thing that I always guide artists with is how to use organic marketing, so not paid marketing, to get your point across, right? To get known, because paying for marketing, you don't need to do it. You know, you can do it later on, but it's just so much more fun when you get to authentically communicate whatever it is that you're about, right? So the first type of Instagram post I'm going to tell you about is I'm going to teach you about a reel that you can post that shares your intention. The second type of Instagram post is going to be a reel of sold work. And the third type of Instagram post will be a multiple image post with videos and details and a captivating caption. Tongue twister or what? But before I get into the details of these 3 types of posts, I want to give you 6 tips on Instagram. Well, I guess you kind of compile them into 5 that are going to blanket everything, right? So number 1, right? I love lists. I think it's about, because I've read so many listicles on BuzzFeed in my life. I'm not sponsored, by the way, but BuzzFeed, if you're listening and whatever, I'm here for it. Okay, so anyway, number 1 is always follow 2 accounts on Instagram, because they're going to teach you about the different changes in the algorithm. They're going to make the changes much more clear to you. So one such account is the head of Instagram, and the account is at Mosseri. That's spelled Mosseri. And the other account is at Creators. So that's Creators. Okay. They're going to update you on so many things. And so one of these things is our second tip, is to always prioritize posting videos that are vertical. So they have to be the vertical orientation. So when you have your phone, you're recording your video, you want to hold your phone vertically so that it takes this long vertical video, which the It's not widescreen 16:9, it's 9:16, which is the ratio that you're videotaping it in. Because like the head of Instagram and the creators account has told us, Instagram is prioritizing video, but it's also prioritizing a more immersive experience. So it's going to start pushing videos that take up the entire screen, because probably they don't want you to click away from Instagram, right? They want you to be fully immersed, spend as much time on there as possible. But we know this trick, right? We could set an alarm so we don't spend that much time scrolling, although I never do. But anyway, so that's tip number 2, is to always have a vertical video. Tip number 3 is to prioritize posting reels. Now, the more reels you post, the more chance that you have of the reel going viral. Okay, because what Reels does is it has its own sort of area in the Explore page. So people get sucked into seeing Reels. So that means so many people, so many accounts are going to see your Reels that normally don't follow you. They might not even know anything about you, but they get to learn about you through Reels, right? So that's tip number 3. Next is, when you're posting Reels, if you have a voiceover that you're doing and not time text, right? If you're talking in your reel, or if you're talking anywhere on Instagram, it's so important for you to use the closed captions option. There is, instead of, you click on the place where you get the Instagram stickers or whatever, the little happy face guy, and from there, you get to choose the closed captions option. That is going to allow people who might have, who may be hearing impaired, to really understand what you're saying, but also people who are not watching Instagram with sound on to really know what you're trying to communicate. So I really recommend using the closed captions option. And then the next thing is, if possible, use the trending audio or any trending audio in your reels, right? So important. And if you don't like the song, that's okay. You can actually go into the music area in your reels and turn the volume all the way down so that it doesn't play, but it will still pop up when people search for reels with that audio, right? And you don't have to use a popular song, you can use a popular audio. So when you kind of realize what it is, it will either be suggested to you. You can also find trending audio listed on certain websites. But my best advice for this is to actually look through reels and find a reel, or if kind of realize what the audios are and use it that way, right? So actually use the option, right? So those are my tips for Instagram before we even get into what these posts are. So that pretty much narrows it down, right? We have all the tools in our toolkit. We have your elevator pitch. We have all these tips about Instagram. Now let's dive into it. What are the 3 Instagram posts that I think you should be posting so that you are using Instagram more effectively to get more visibility, to connect to an audience that matters for you, and to get more sales, right? So let's start with the first one. The first one is actually one of my favorite reels to see. It's one of my favorite reels to see anyone do. Whether you're a visual artist, whether you're a business owner, whatever it is, I love to get to know people on there, right? We're on Instagram for connection. So in this reel, I'm going to tell you, first thing to do is to introduce yourself. So what you want to do is take a video of your artwork, You could technically be wearing pajamas because you don't have to be in this reel, which is kind of amazing, very easy. So take a video of your artwork and show us the coolest details about your work, whether it's the details, the Swarovski crystals on it, whether it is, I don't know, the texture, the ooey gooey texture of it, whether it's very small size, right? And it's high detail, then you want to put something in that video so that we understand how large the artwork is. So if it's a small artwork, put a quarter next to it or something like that, or maybe even a pencil or a pen. And if it's large, make sure that we see either the floor or the ceiling of the room, because that way we kind of get a sense of the scale, right? So create a fascinating video of your work. I like to tell artists to start off with a detail and then zoom out. Now, remember, you always want to keep the video vertical, okay? So you're going to keep the video vertical, and you can do something really cool here. You can just say your elevator pitch. It doesn't have to be perfect. It could be almost perfect, right? Say your elevator pitch over the videos that you stitch together about the work. Now, when you're creating a video of your work, you could do several different shots and then stitch them together in reels. And then instead of adding music, you add a voiceover where you speak about your work. And of course, you want to add in the closed caption as well, right? So that people who are watching the reel without sound on can totally understand what you're trying to say. Okay, so that would be good, right? And a lot of people tell me, oh, you know, Marina, I don't want to like introduce myself to people who already know me. First of all, the people who already know you might not understand the full motivation behind your work. So being vulnerable enough to tell them your elevator pitch is going to be exciting for them to hear. And secondly, not everyone who follows you sees your work, right? Not everyone who follows you will see your posts. So it's important for you to post it so that if they happen to see your post, they get to learn a little bit more about you. And finally, because it's a reel, it's going to be pushed to so many people who don't normally know who you are, right? So this is their first introduction to you, and it's going to give them so much more motivation to follow you if they like your work, if they connect to your intention. So it's going to be a reel that converts to follows, that hopefully convert to sales, which brings me to my next reel for you. So the next reel is to create a reel now that shows off the work that you have placed into collections, whether it was 5 years ago that you sold something, whether it's something that you gifted. It's work in a collection, right? And I want to kind of steer you away from using the word sold too much. You could simply say this has been placed in a private collection. So when you're doing this reel, what you should start out with, you could do a voiceover where you speak over the various content that you post in the reel, or you could do time text. So for the first 3 seconds or so delighted that my work is in collections all over the world, right? So that could be the time text for the first 3 seconds. Then you import content, whether it's an image of your artwork hanging somewhere, whether it's a video, or maybe you can create a video of of the image moving, zooming in and out, something like that, because then it creates this video effect, and Instagram is going to push the video, right? And make sure that all of these are vertical. There's no black text on top or bottom. Okay. So then you can say, this one is in New York over the artwork that's in a collection in New York. Then you can say, this one is in Paris. This one is also in New York, right? And this one is in Sarasota. And this one is in Shanghai, whatever it is. Because when people see that you have sold the work already, they're going to get so excited for you. And they're also going to feel more comfortable asking to buy the work or actually buying the work because they're going to see that other people are buying it. Now, what evidence is there is maybe you could actually upload images of the work hanging in people's homes. You can ask them to take a video of the work in their house, right? And don't be afraid to reach out. I think one of the biggest fears that I've heard from artists is that if they reach out and ask someone to take a video of the artwork in their home or a picture of the artwork in their home, then that person will say, well, actually, I want to return it. That will not happen. Okay. Forget that. That is a weird fear. And if you have never thought of it, forget I even said it. Okay. Because it doesn't happen. This is not going to happen. Okay. It's not returnable. But anyway, so having a reel that shows off the work that is sold, right? So important. And you can add a call to action at the end of this reel, and that is time text that says link in bio for available work, right? And then you have a link to your online shop, right? Another call to action you could add is, especially after the introduction video of reel, especially after the introduction reel. Sorry, I'm like so popular that my phone rings during these things because I didn't turn my notifications off. That's another tip for you. So at the end of the intro reel, you could say, follow for more anatomy or whatever it is, the theme that your work is, or follow for more artworks about blah, 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 right? So that people are reminded to follow. And of course, at the end of the other reel with the sold work, like I said, have them click on the link in your bio for more available work or follow for available work, right? It's much easier for them to just click follow when they're looking at a reel than actually like clicking on your name, going to the bio, scrolling through. It's going to be a little bit harder. So just get people to follow you, get them to remind them to follow you at the end of every reel. Okay. Now, the final Instagram post that I'm going to tell you about today is not a reel. So this is going to be a multiple image post with a captivating caption. Now, here's the thing. Why wouldn't you just post reels all the time? Well, because sometimes posting reels and creating the content to post reels is a little bit time consuming. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes you get into the groove and it's super easy for you. But ultimately, you might want to post something that might be just images, right? Now, while you should be prioritizing vertical images, you don't have to make them super vertical when you're doing a multiple image post, right? I think it is 4 to 5 is the aspect ratio that it is. But don't worry about the aspect ratio. You can just make it work once you start making the post. So when you make a multiple image post, what's super special about this is that it keeps people looking at your post because they're going to go scrolling from one image to the other. And the artificial intelligence that creates the algorithm and updates the algorithm, it always thinks that it's so important for you to spend time looking at a post because that means you're spending more time on Instagram. So even if somebody isn't liking it, if they're looking at your post and they're spending time looking at it, it adds, brownie points for you. So anyway, here's the thing. I would suggest that you create a multiple image post that's about the inspiration behind your work, or just sort of some artworks that are maybe in a series together. And so let me stick to one idea here. So let's say you're posting artworks in a series together. It's really cool for you to post a video first in the multiple image post, in the carousel post. So create a video, either of the artwork hanging or just zooming in and out on one of the artworks is fine too. And then you have some other artworks in the same series. And then the caption could say, what story is this telling you? Or if you were to name the series, what would it be? Or which one's your favorite? 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. So that people spend a little bit of time, even if they don't comment, they're going to spend an extra second thinking about what to say, right? But if they do comment, then that's great. So having a multiple image post, especially with video, because video keeps people looking, is so great. Now, the other thing I'm going to tell you with a multiple image post, try to steer clear of just posting an image of the artwork cropped to the edges if it's a two-dimensional artwork, because there's nothing like seeing the artwork in context hanging somewhere. It's going to be so much more fascinating. All right, you guys. Well, I hope you truly enjoyed this episode. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments below, or DM me on Instagram and ask me a question. But ultimately, thank you so much for listening, and I look forward to seeing you next time.